The Sports Source is brought to you by Fast Frame. Shadow boxes come with a lifetime guarantee.
You are watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into The Sports Source. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Father's Day to my dad who's watching, I hope, or else he's not much of a dad, is he? Also, who can take an 8 commitment day and make it a bad thing? Folks on social media. We'll discuss Tennessee's big recruiting haul yesterday, which, to hear some tell it, was a terrible day at the office. 8 commits, but 7 3-stars. We'll talk about 3-star Butch and a lot of other things today. Some scenarios in terms of would this be a good season? 5 different scenarios. We'll decide whether or not it would be a good season for Tennessee football. Also, Bill Justice going to join us to talk about VFL legend Jimmy England, who passed away this week. So it's a full show. Let's get right into it. First segment of our show brought to you by Tennova Healthcare. When you need medical care anywhere in East Tennessee, Tennova is always nearby, whether it's Jefferson City, Morristown, Newport, La Follette, Jamestown, Cleveland, 3 locations just around Knoxville, Powell, downtown, Turkey Creek. Trust the folks I trust with my life, and they saved my life. Tennova Healthcare. And you can find more at tennova.com. All right. I trust these gentlemen as well. We have Mr. Bob Hodge back with us, Mr. Jimmy Himes, Mr. Josh Ward is right there, and Mr. Chuck Cavaleris, as always, down there as far away from me as possible. All right. Before yesterday, the complaints were Tennessee was getting clobbered in-state in terms of recruiting. Tennessee didn't have enough commitments. So they have their orange carpet event yesterday. And last year, you might remember, they didn't get a bunch of commitments on orange carpet day, and that was a big concern. Okay, so yesterday they get 8 commitments, 4 from in-state players. Happy, right? No. 7 of the 8 were 3-star players. Now, granted, it's 8 months from signing day, but that didn't stop a lot of folks from saying, this isn't good enough. 3-star Butch can't recruit. This is the kind of class that will not win in the SEC. I had someone tweet me this morning and say, you're on par with Northwestern, that's not good enough. Josh Ward, I'm going to start with you because you cover recruiting. You've got your own recruiting show on Sports Radio WNML. Your thoughts on yesterday's haul. Is it, hurrah, this is all good? Is it outrage because 7 3-stars isn't good enough, or is it somewhere in between? What do you think?
Well, it probably is somewhere in between, but I can't imagine being outraged over a day in which you bring 7 commitments in one class, 8 total. You're also a week removed from getting Malik Gray, who's a big-time in-state player. And I also don't, at this point, understand the idea of questioning whether Butch Jones can recruit or not. He's done it at this point. I think when he landed Jalen Hurd, Todd Kelly Jr. very early in his tenure, at that point we learned that he can recruit. Also, I don't think they'll all be 3-stars by signing day. Exactly. I don't think they'll all sign with Tennessee either. Some of these guys will, if Tennessee decides it doesn't want these players, they will move them out in favor of a 4 or 5-star player in January, February. Whether you like that or not, right. In terms of signing big-time players, they will go find those guys.
And that's something we've talked about on the show for a long time. When Nick Saban was doing it, Les Miles was doing it, we've talked about it here. I'm not a fan of that. I think it's rough. You take a commitment from a kid. Now, granted, kids give commitments and change their minds, but if you take a commitment from a kid, I think it ought to be there. A scholarship should be there. But Tennessee has shown you get all these 3-stars, you fill up your class, and you say, well, they don't have room for anybody. And then miraculously, they get room for these next 2 or 3, 4, or 5-stars that come in. Jimmy, your thoughts on what was your reaction, and what do you think the reaction should be?
My reaction is they had a heck of a day. And part of it, look, I know a lot of them are 3-stars. Okay, Cam Sutton was a 3-star. I think you got a list of a lot of 3-stars that Tennessee has signed through the years that became really good players. I agree with Josh. A lot of those guys are going to go from 3 to 4-star. Here's the other thing I look at. Who else was offering? If it was a bunch of FCS schools, then I got a little bit of concern. But if Alabama, Florida State, Ohio State, and others are offering them, I don't care what their star rating is. And also, I give this staff some credit for this. They have identified players in the past that weren't that well known or highly recruited or didn't have many stars. What's the guy, Christmas Giles, out of Louisiana? Yeah. So that nobody's offering him. Tennessee identifies him, they get him, and all of a sudden he blows up and everybody wants him. I think this staff and under Butch Jones has done a good job of identifying good players. So I would trust in them. I think it's a big day for Tennessee.
Before I get to Bob and Chuck, let's go ahead and look at some of the players that were. Well, let's look at all the players who committed yesterday. If we got a shot at this, there we go. Let me run through this. Latrell Bumpus. You see what position they play. He's from the state of Tennessee. His best offer was from LSU, 4-star player. Trey Coleman, running back from Louisiana, best offer, Arkansas, which you may say Arkansas, but if there's one area I trust Brett Bielema on, he seems to know something about running backs. Princeton Fant, great name, wide receiver, best offer, aside from Tennessee, of course, LSU. Jaquan Henderson, linebacker. Nah, who wants him? Jim Harbaugh would kill for him. Michigan was all over this kid. LSU had offered Theo Jackson. Florida State had offered Trey Lawson. Alante Tucker has not been, by the way, he's not been reviewed or rated by Rivals yet. These are all Rivals ratings. That's why he doesn't have the stars there, doesn't have stars beside him.
But he committed to Vanderbilt.
Yeah, he had committed to Vanderbilt.
Got him away from Vandy.
Yeah, got him from Vandy. Jordan Tucker, down there, the last one. Those last two, one was Vandy, one is South Carolina. Tucker's best offer from South Carolina. Okay, so maybe you got a question there, but still, South Carolina, it's SEC. Vanderbilt, technically SEC.
And Tucker's a big athlete from
6'6".
Georgia. I'll take a shot on that kind of guy.
That's the 6'6" kid, right? Yeah. Bob and Chuck, your thoughts on Tennessee and the reaction to the 3 stars? Do you have a problem with lining up?
No, I don't have a problem with what they did as far as getting the 3 stars. And like everybody says, that this is a moving situation. It'll change between now and February. What I thought was brilliant about it was Butch Jones found a way to market his program in June. I mean, here you are, you get positive news about the University of Tennessee football program, positive to a lot of people, although some.
I think most people.
You know. But I thought that, what a great thing that he did. It scrolled across ESPN. It was all across the country. So you're sitting there marketing yourself in a positive way in a time when a lot of people aren't thinking about football, and football's not running across the bottom of your screen on ESPN.
Chuck?
I mean, since when did the recruiting rankings in June become such a big deal, and the backlash to that? You know, I want to see where some of these ratings are, you know, all into the season. And here's another thing, and all these points are excellent. You're also getting some leverage, too, as you go on into the recruiting process. If there's somebody on your board that's on one of these positions, you can go, hey, we've already taken 1 commitment now. We might not be able to take more than 1 or 2. And that kind of weighs heavily with what these kids do.
A couple other things, Josh. You know, some of these guys may be pals with bigger recruits.
Right.
It's not above college staffs to say, these two seem chummy. Get this one, and maybe he'll talk his buddy in. And the other thing is, Tennessee has shown a really good ability to find guys that will then go forth and recruit via social media. Some of these guys may be social media recruiters for you as well that they're looking at. I'm not trying to make excuses. I understand that you don't want a team of 100 3-star athletes. However, I think in June, taking this, I think the overreaction for 3 stars has been over the top.
Yeah, they're more familiar with each other than ever because of social media, the ability to either text, direct message on Twitter and Facebook. And I promise that other recruits out there that are uncommitted, they're not going to the rival site and looking at who all offered to decide, I wonder if they're on par with me. They just know that they're really good prospects. And if they're interested in Tennessee, uncommitted guys will probably look closer at Tennessee as well.
Well, here's the interesting thing. For those saying that Tennessee can't, that Butch Jones can't recruit, the 24/7 composite rankings where they look at Scout, Rivals, ESPN, their own, Tennessee's ranked number 7 in the nation right now with their class. All those 3 stars are not. Number 7 in the country. So when I look at that, that makes it seem even a little. Now, Rivals, interestingly, has them at number 29. So a little bit of a discrepancy between 7 and 29. But still, hard to complain right now in June when you're 8 months away from signing them.
I would ask those that would say Butch Jones can't recruit, then why is Tennessee favored to win the East Division? Don't they have some pretty good players on that team? Aren't there some players that are going to be drafted? Weren't there several that could have gone last year? Look, if you, and there are some people that believe that only Alabama and LSU have better talent right now than Tennessee. Isn't that an indication that you can recruit?
No.
I'm sorry.
All right. Tell you what, we got to catch a break. But later in the show, we're going to take a look at Tennessee's top end of their roster, the kind of projected depth chart, who the contributor's going to be, and we'll just cross off the 3 stars. Somebody on social media said yesterday on a message board, I'm not going to get excited about signing bad football players. we'll cross off all the bad 3-star players, and you might be interested to see who are 3-star athletes on this roster. When we come back, though, 5 scenarios for Tennessee's upcoming season. Which ones would be good? Which ones wouldn't? Come on back.